The sound of glass shattering is something I will never forget. Not because of the glass itself, but because of what came right before it, my brother's hand sweeping my grandmother's favorite ceramic bowl off the kitchen counter like it was trash, and my 6-year-old daughter Maya standing 3 feet away, barefoot, her eyes wide and filling with tears she was too scared to let fall. "This kitchen is too small," my brother said, not even looking at either of us. "We're going to need to knock out that wall." That was the moment I knew exactly what I had already known for 47 days. I had been counting. Let me go back to the beginning, because if I start here, you'll ask why I let it get this far. Everyone always asks that, and I need you to understand because I had a reason. I had a very specific, very deliberate reason. And by the time this story is over, I think you'll agree it was worth every single day I spent smiling through gritted teeth. My grandmother passed away 14 months ago. She was 81 years old, sharp as a tack until the very end, and she left me her house. Not my mother, not my brother, me. Her house in Savannah, Georgia, a 4-bedroom craftsman with original hardwood floors and a front porch she used to sit on every evening with a glass of sweet tea and her Bible. She left it to me because I was the one who showed up. Every Sunday for 12 years. Every doctor's appointment. Every hospital stay. Every lonely Tuesday when she just needed someone to play cards with. I was there. My mother never forgave her for it. I'm 31 years old. I was 29 when my grandmother passed and I inherited the house. I'm a medical billing specialist. I work from home. I have a 6-year-old daughter named Maya, and I've been raising her alone since her father walked out when she was 8 months old. My name is on that deed. My grandmother sat across from her attorney and signed her name next to mine. And then she looked at me and said, "You earned it, baby. Don't you let anybody take it from you." I should have tattooed those words on the inside of my wrist. My brother is 35. His name is Devin. He has a wife named Rochelle and 2 kids, ages 4 and 7. For most of my adult life, Devin and I had a cordial relationship, not close, not warm, but civil. He remembered my birthday. I went to his kids' birthday parties. We had the kind of sibling relationship where everything looks fine in family photos and nobody talks about anything real. What I didn't know, until I inherited that house, was how deeply my brother believed that everything our family had should belong to him simply because he was the oldest. He never said it out loud, not at first. Instead, he started showing up to help, or so he said. He came by twice in the first month after I moved in, offering to fix things, offering to help me with repairs. He was charming about it. His wife brought food. His kids played with Maya in the backyard. I thought maybe this was us becoming closer. I thought maybe grief was softening all of us. Then, 3 months after I moved in, my mother called me. She told me that Devin and Rochelle had lost their rental house. Their landlord had sold the property and they had 30 days to find somewhere new. She told me that they had looked everywhere and couldn't find anything affordable in time. She told me that they were family. She told me that Grandma would have wanted us to take care of each other. And then she told me what she had apparently already decided, that Devin and his family would be moving into the house with me. Not asking, telling. I was quiet for a long time on that phone call. "It's a 4-bedroom house," my mother said. "There's more than enough room." "It's my house, Mom." "It's the family home," she said. And I heard something in her voice that I hadn't heard before, or maybe I had always heard it and just never wanted to name it. Entitlement. The quiet, bedrock certainty that she knew better than me, and that her version of things was simply the correct one. I told her I would think about it. I hung up the phone. I sat in my grandmother's kitchen for a long time, running my hand across the countertop, looking out the window at the backyard where Maya was still playing. What I did not tell my mother was that the day before, I had found something. I had been going through the last boxes from my grandmother's storage room. Old papers, old photographs, things I had been slowly sorting through. And in a manila envelope at the bottom of the last box, I found a stack of documents, bank statements, loan agreements. A promissory note signed by my mother, dated 11 years ago, for $40,000 borrowed from my grandmother. And beneath it, another one, signed by Devin, 8 years ago, $23,000. Neither loan had ever been repaid, not $1. I sat with that information for 24 hours before my mother called, and in that 24 hours, something shifted in me. I stopped thinking like a daughter and a sister who was being pushed around. I started thinking very, very carefully. I called my grandmother's attorney. I asked questions. I took notes. And then I called my mother back, and I said yes. I said they could come. I want to be clear about something. I sent Maya to stay with my best friend Tamra for the first 2 weeks after my brother's family moved in. Tamra lives 20 minutes away. Maya thought she was having a sleepover adventure. She had no idea what was happening at home, and I made sure of that. I am her mother. Protecting her was always the first thing, not the last thing. What happened later, the bowl, the glass, that was week 7. Week 7 was when I made a decision that in hindsight I understand was a mistake. I let Maya come home because she was asking for me, because 2 weeks had stretched into nearly 2 months, and I missed her, and I believed incorrectly that things had settled into a manageable tension. I was wrong. But I want you to know, the moment that bowl hit the floor and I saw her face, I called Tamara within the hour. Maya was back at Tamara's house by dinner time. She did not spend another night in that house while Devin and Rochelle were in it, but I'm getting ahead of myself. The first week was almost pleasant, in the way that things are pleasant when everyone is still performing. Rochelle cooked dinner the first 3 nights. Devin fixed the gutter on the south side of the house that I'd been meaning to call someone about. My mother came over twice, and the 4 of us sat at the kitchen table drinking coffee like a normal family. I smiled. I asked about their kids. I talked about Maya. I was the most gracious host you have ever seen. I was also, by that point, recording everything. I had installed 4 small cameras inside the house, 1 in the kitchen, 1 in the living room, 1 in the upstairs hallway, 1 in the entryway. All legally purchased, all within my rights as the homeowner, all pointed at common areas. I told no one. I also kept a log, a simple notes app on my phone, where every single day I recorded what was said, what was done, and by whom. The cracks started appearing at the end of week 2. Rochelle began making comments about the house. Small ones. At first, the bathroom tiles were outdated. The closets in their room weren't big enough. She said these things lightly, conversationally, the way you mention the weather. But I noticed the pattern. Every comment was a brick in a wall. She was building a wall that said this house needed to become something different, something that suited them, something that was theirs. Devin started going through things. I noticed it first when a framed photo of my grandmother disappeared from the hallway shelf. I found it 2 days later in the garage, face down in a corner. When I asked Devin about it, he said he must have bumped it by accident and it fell. He picked it up and put it back. He was charming about it. He was always charming about it. By week 4, the comments had stopped being small. Rochelle told me not ask me, told me that they needed my home office space because Devin was going to start working from home and needed a dedicated room. My office was where I ran my entire business. I had a desk, 2 monitors, a filing cabinet, a printer, and a system. She said I could work from the kitchen table or my bedroom. She said it with a smile. I said I would think about it. I did not move out of my office, but I increased the cloud backup frequency on all my files that same night. Devin started having conversations with my mother that I was not part of. I knew this because my mother started calling me with new ideas, things that were framed as suggestions but had the shape and weight of decisions. Maybe I should look into getting a bigger house, since this one was feeling crowded with all of us. Maybe I should think about what it would mean to put the house in the family trust, so everyone would be protected. Maybe Devin and Rochelle could handle the property taxes this year, in lieu of rent, and then work out something more formal down the road. I listened to every single one of these calls. I wrote down every word. I said, I'll think about it, to every single thing. And then I called my attorney. I want to tell you about a night in week 5, because this is the part that still makes my chest tight when I think about it. I came downstairs at 2 in the morning because I couldn't sleep, and I found Devin sitting at the kitchen table with a stack of papers in front of him. He didn't hear me come down. He was on the phone, speaking quietly, and I stood in the hallway just out of sight and I listened. He was talking to someone about property valuations. He was asking about what it would take to contest a will. He was asking about the legal concept of undue influence, specifically whether a granddaughter caring for an elderly woman in her final years could be argued to have manipulated her. He was talking about my grandmother. He was talking about me. He was trying to find a way to take the house. I went back upstairs. I did not sleep. In the morning, I came down and made coffee and said good morning and asked if he wanted eggs. I also called my attorney at 8 o'clock sharp and told her everything I had heard. By week 6, I had a complete picture. The plan, and it was a plan, I understand that now, was to get Devon's name onto the property in some form before filing any legal challenge. The property tax offer from my mother was the first move. If I had accepted it, Devon would have financial records showing contribution to the property's upkeep. The family trust suggestion was the second move, get my signature on something that diluted my sole ownership. The office takeover was about establishing physical dominance, making me smaller in my own space, wearing me down. What they had not accounted for was the $43,000. My attorney had sent formal letters to both my mother and my brother 6 days before Devon's family moved into my house, certified mail, return receipt requested. The letters were simple. They referenced the promissory notes. They stated the outstanding balances, with interest calculated at the standard rate over the years elapsed. They requested a repayment plan be established within 30 days. They were signed by my attorney and referenced my grandmother's estate. My mother had not told Devon about her letter. Devon had not told my mother about his. I know this because of what happened in week 6, when they apparently compared notes. That was the week the warmth disappeared entirely. Rochelle stopped cooking. Devon stopped being charming. My mother called me furious, not about the money. She was careful not to mention the money directly, but furious in that way that people are furious when they have been caught and can't say so. She said I was being cold. She said I was being selfish. She said that family didn't sue each other over old paperwork. I told her I wasn't suing anyone. I was simply asking for money that had been borrowed and never returned. I told her Grandma kept very thorough records. That shut her down for about 4 days. And then came week 7. The bowl. Maya standing there with her bare feet on the hardwood floor, her eyes wide, my brother's hand still extended from the sweep that sent it flying. "We're going to need to knock out that wall," he said. I looked at him for a long moment. Maya looked at me. I picked up my daughter, held her against my shoulder, felt her breath on my neck, and I said very quietly, "You're not going to knock out any wall, Devon." He turned around then, really looked at me, maybe for the first time since they had moved in. "This is still my house," I said, "and I think it's time we talked about your timeline." He laughed. Actually laughed. "Your house. Okay. And what happens when I file a challenge to that will and the court finds out you spent 12 years cozying up to a senile old woman to make sure you got it?" I looked at him. Grandma was assessed by 2 independent physicians in the 18 months before she passed. Both found her to be fully competent. Her attorney has those records. I have copies. He stopped laughing. "I also have recordings," I said, "from the common areas of my home, including the kitchen, including last Tuesday night at 2 in the morning. The color changed in his face. I had never watched someone's confidence leave them in real time before. It is something I will not forget. I called Tamara that afternoon. Maya was out of the house by 5 o'clock, and I was ready. What happened next happened through my attorney, because I am not a woman who handles things with screaming and drama. I handle things with documentation and precision. Within the week, my brother's family received a formal notice. It was a notice to vacate, drafted correctly and legally, citing the 30-day requirement under Georgia landlord-tenant law. Because here is the thing about having your family stay in your house without a lease and without any exchange of rent, it creates a specific legal relationship, one that gives the homeowner a clear and legal path to end it. My attorney also sent a formal demand letter regarding the promissory notes. Both of them. $63,000 in outstanding debt, plus interest. The letter offered 2 options, a structured repayment plan, or the matter would proceed to collections. My mother called me 17 times in 3 days. I let it go to voicemail. I listened to every message. I kept every one. Devon came to my home office door on day 4. He knocked. He had never knocked on that door before. He had walked past it, around it, tried to claim it, but he had never knocked. I opened the door. He looked older than he had 2 months ago. Something had gone out of him. "We need to talk," he said. "Okay," I said. We sat at the kitchen table, the same table where he had sat at 2 in the morning making phone calls about contesting my grandmother's will. I had coffee. I offered him some. He said no. I know what you have, he said. The recording. I have recordings, I said. Plural. He was quiet for a moment. We don't have anywhere to go. You have 30 days, I said. That's the legal requirement and I'm honoring it fully. I'm not trying to put your kids on the street. I never was. Mom's not going to forgive you for this. I looked at him. Devin. Your mother borrowed $40,000 from our grandmother and never paid back a single dollar. She watched that woman age and struggle, and she never once offered to return what she owed. I didn't create this situation. I'm just the first person in this family to put it in writing. He left the table after that. He went upstairs. I heard him and Rochelle talking in low voices for a long time. Over the following 2 weeks, the house became a quiet, tense, negotiated space. Devin stopped trying to claim rooms or knock out walls. Rochelle stopped making comments about the decor. They stayed to their side of things, and I stayed to mine. It was deeply uncomfortable, and I will not pretend otherwise. But I had prepared myself for uncomfortable. Comfortable had cost me too much already. On day 28, they moved out. A rental 3 towns over. I don't know how they managed it, and it wasn't my job to wonder. They loaded a moving truck on a Saturday morning, and by 2 in the afternoon they were gone. I stood in the empty hallway afterward. I touched the wallpaper that my grandmother had chosen, tiny blue flowers, faded now but still there. I straightened the framed photo of her on the shelf. I sat down on the front porch with a glass of sweet tea, and I looked out at the street and I let myself breathe. Maya came home that evening. She asked where Uncle Devin and Aunt Rochelle went. I told her they had found their own house, which was true. She said, "Can we have movie night in the living room now?" And I said, "Yes, absolutely yes. Put your pajamas on and pick anything you want." We watched 2 movies. She fell asleep against my shoulder 20 minutes into the second one. I sat there in my grandmother's living room in my grandmother's house with my daughter's weight warm against my side, and I did not move for a long time. My mother and I have not spoken since. She sent me a text message, once, that said I had betrayed this family and I would regret it. I read it. I did not respond. I don't have any particular anger toward her, which surprises me sometimes. What I mostly feel is tired of the version of family that means accepting whatever is done to you because speaking up is the greater sin. The promissory notes are still in the hands of my attorney. We are pursuing repayment. It is a slow process. I do not need the money urgently, but I intend to see it through. Because my grandmother tracked every dollar she ever lent out in a little blue notebook, and the last time I spoke with her 3 days before she passed, she held my hand and said, "I always knew what was fair, baby. I just couldn't always say it out loud." I can say it out loud. That's something she gave me too. There is one more thing I want to say, because it matters to me, and I think it might matter to some of you listening. I have been thinking a lot about what we call strength. When people hear a story like this, they sometimes say, the person was strong for enduring it. But endurance is not the thing I'm proud of. Endurance just means you survived. What I'm proud of is the 53 days I spent building a case instead of having an explosion, the phone calls to the attorney, the camera I installed before they ever moved in, the promissory notes I found and sat with for 24 hours before I said a single word to anyone, the grace I showed at that kitchen table, every single morning, while I was quietly, methodically making sure that when the moment came, I would be the one holding every card. My grandmother used to say that a woman who keeps her composure in a crisis is a woman who prepared before the crisis arrived. I didn't understand that when I was younger. I thought it meant being calm. Now I know it means something different. It means doing the work when nobody is watching, so that when everybody is watching, the work is already done. My daughter is 7 now. She's funny and loud, and she talks to her stuffed animals like they have opinions. Last week she asked me if we could plant tomatoes in the backyard this summer, and I said yes, and we went to the hardware store and picked out seeds, and she held the little paper packets very carefully in both hands all the way home, like they were something precious. This house is ours, my name is on the deed. I earned it, and I kept it, and this summer, we're going to plant tomatoes in the backyard and eat them on the front porch in the evenings, just like my grandmother used to do. If you are listening to this and you are going through something similar, if someone in your family has decided that what belongs to you actually belongs to them, If you are being pushed out of your own space or worn down by people who know exactly which buttons to press, I want you to hear this. Document everything. Know your legal rights. Find an attorney before you need one. And do not let anyone convince you that protecting what is yours is the same thing as being selfish. It is not. Love your family. But know the difference between family and people who use that word to justify taking from you. I know that difference now. Learned it the hard way, in my grandmother's kitchen, with my daughter watching. I don't plan to forget it.